Norwich has a new road system which is sort of encircling the top part of the city. Part of that has already been complete, but there is one planned part of it, the Wensum Link Road, which is still hopefully open for debate. It is a development which would impact negatively on all sorts of wildlife, but in particular a type of bat species. So before we get on that soapbox and start asking you to help out with a campaign that is running to address the issue of the Wensum Link Road, let's hear from Lottie Packham, who's going to explain to us a little bit about the biology and the conservation importance of one of the species that lies, unfortunately, in its route. Here is Lottie.
So we're here in a woodland to the west of Norwich, and this whole area has got a quite remarkable and little known secret. It's home to a nationally important population of the rare and highly protected Barbastell bat. So these bats are so rare that even in the Mammal Society's guide, we haven't even got basic information about how many there are, which is quite fundamental information to know, and it's just a list of question marks. So what we do know about these bats is really remarkable. So these bats can live for more than 20 years, which is incredible for such a small species. And they're very site faithful, so they'll return to these same woods and same roosts year after year to raise their pups. And they'll only have maybe one, possibly two pups each summer. So this might look like a bit of a ropey old tree, but this is actually fantastic tree for barbastells because it's got this loose peeling bark that they like to go up behind for their roosts. Because we know this whole area is really important for these Barbastell bats, we were quite concerned about some of these woodlands. So last summer we came here and we did a nighttime survey catching bats. And we found a really interesting array of species, including these very rare barbastells. And those barbastells we fitted with these tiny little transmitters that meant we could track their movements. And from that we established that they actually have maternity roosts here in these very woodlands.
Situated to the north of Norwich, the Northern Distributor Road has recently been completed. To the west of this road is one of the few remaining strongholds for barbastells. The woodlands here support a network of linked barbastell colonies, which we call the Western Super Colony. The proposed Norwich Western Link dual carriageway would cut right through this area.
So when roads are built through woodland habitats, what is often proposed as compensation is to plant new trees, like here. But where is a bat supposed to roost in this? Another thing that's often proposed in these road schemes, where the road is going to sever habitats, is things like this green bridge here. But as you can see, it's stark and it's barren, and it's no substitute for a woodland corridor. Where we are right now, the road is actually going to cut right through this section where we are. So not only is that an issue for those Barbastell bats that have got a maternity colony that we found right here in this woodland, but also the other woodlands dotted around this area where there are Barbastell colonies, they're going to be affected too. It's going to fragment the habitats, disrupt their foraging areas and commuting routes.
Very special place.
Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh dear. Barbastell bats are pretty special bats.
Very special bats.
And already this week, Jones Hill Wood in the route of HS2 has had significant felling after a judge revoked a stop order on that felling down to bat roosts. So basically what happened there, Natural England had licensed the felling of the wood. There was a court case that was taken. The judge said, okay, you can't cut the trees down because of the bats. He overruled that. And then unfortunately, at the end of the week, another judge waded in because HS2 had been putting tremendous pressure on getting this sorted, of course, and said, actually, it's only a bunch of bats. Let's cut the woods down. And so that's been happening there. That's obviously a rail project. Road projects can be equally damaging, if not more so, because there are more of them. Highways England's new road projects are set to cost us £14 billion, £14 billion, which is nowhere near the 110 billion HS2 is going to cost, but nevertheless, it is significant. And of course, road building projects like that go against our commitment to reduce carbon and meet all of our carbon targets. Now, the cost of this Western Link Road is 153 billion. 153 to 280 million. So again, it's an enormous sum of money, sum of money. It's going to cut straight through the Wensum Valley, and that's a chalk stream. And there are only about 200 of these types of chalk streams worldwide. We tend to forget in the UK that, we do have habitats here which are of not just local or national, but international importance. It's not all about tropical rainforest. We do have chalk streams here, the likes of which you do not find elsewhere.
Very important for very specific biodiversity.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an SSSI, a special area of conservation, and it's recognised as one of the most important chalk river habitats in the country, with enormous numbers of plant and animal species living there. Then outside of the chalk stream, the Wensum Valley itself is a patchwork of old woodland, hence being home to those bats that need those old trees that have died, are still upright, not been cut down, and with their flaking bark there. And the road building scheme is going to go straight through the middle of it, bisecting that really important area for this species. Now, some species of bats can fly over roads, but due to the type of echolocation that they use and the frequency that they use, that determines how they move through the landscape. It's not just about finding their food when they're producing their echolocating clicks or communicating with one another. It's also about navigating, and some species frankly just can't cross roads. So if you cut them in half like that, you have a dramatic and dangerous impact on the population. You split it in two, which makes it altogether
makes them more vulnerable,
yeah,
makes those two populations more vulnerable. They're unable to find resources, unable to find mates, and you get something, genetic inbreeding. You get, obviously more vulnerable to disease outbreaks because they're unable to move through. It's just habitat fragmentation is one of the worst things, and we're so bad for it in the UK, and we're making it worse.
We've also featured, I don't know if you remember the Wensum Valley before, when we were with Nick Aitchison releasing those corn crakes. So here's an area where we've already invested a lot in when it comes to nature conservation. Corn crakes, obviously a very rare bird, and that's a brave, exciting conservation project which is ongoing there. And as Lottie has alluded to, the mitigation offers that are put on the table these days for these sorts of projects are very often nonsense. Planting all of those little trees. But we know what happened when HS2 planted their first batch of trees, 250,000 trees. No one watered them and they all died. And when we were confronted at HS2 and said to them, well, all your trees have died, even these little saplings you put in, they said, well, it's cheaper to replant them next year than it was to water them this. That's the sort of attitude that we're dealing with. And of course, this idiotic idea that you can produce, replace ancient woodland by planting, 50 centimetre tall saplings, it just defies comprehension. Ridiculous. So that this is nonsense. Plus the fact that we've got damage to the whole aquifer system there, the below the ground water as well, which could cause a problem. And this is all about building roads. And we know that we cannot continue to pump carbon out there, and there isn't the resources for the whole world to have electric cars. Electric cars are part of a solution at the moment, but they're not ultimately going to be a long-term solution. And I'm just going to read a little section here. The Campaign to Protect Rural England's report in 2017, The End of the Road, very aptly named, found that any benefits of road schemes in terms of congestion relief are short-lived. They generate more traffic, cause permanent environmental damage, and show little evidence of economic benefit to local communities. And that really sums it up. I'll tell you what, I'm going to read that again because it's particularly pertinent. What it found was that any benefits of road schemes in terms of congestion relief are short-lived. They generate more traffic, they cause permanent environmental damage, and show little evidence of economic benefit to local communities. Look, we've got to be thinking. This is a time where we've got to draw a line in the sand, and we've got to think, we've got to change our mind, we've got to change our practices, because if we don't, we're in big trouble. We cannot carry on with business as usual. We can't carry on just building, hoping that that's going to get us to a bright happy, healthy and sustainable future. It's not. As I've mentioned, the Barbastale bats are specially protected, but even wildlife law, as we've seen this week with HS2, isn't sometimes worth the paper that it's printed on. I'm pleased to say that there is a crowdfunder running, and it's to stop the Wensum link. And the crowdfunder is running to make sure that the group of people that are running can get good legal advice, and that does come with a cost, even though they'll be working with lawyers that are, being very fair with their pricing. It will also require some ecological consultancy and all sorts of other additional costs. So if you can, and I know this has been a week for asking people to give. We've had a hunt saboteur nearly killed at a badger set, where people have given very, very generously. So thank you very much for that. We know that people are now donating to the North Wales Naturalist
Lots
Trust.
of people commenting saying that they've been donating. So thank you so much for that, for the osprey.
So that's good. But there is a crowdfunder, and you can find it crowdfunder.co.uk. But then you'll find it anyway. Stop the Wensum link. It's hyphenated if you want to type it straight in, but you'll find it otherwise. Stop the Wensum link. And I think any support that you can afford to challenge this very significant road building project, we've got to send out some signs to people that we just can't carry on doing what we have been doing. We need to see some significant changes, and that requires some bravery. And we do see bravery. What about a few years ago when there was the M4 extension that was going to cut through Newport wetlands? But no, there were people there in South Wales and the Welsh government who said, you know what? No, we're not going to do this. We're going to put the environment first. And that does take bravery from politicians. But when they summon it, we do respect it and we salute it and applaud it. So come on, find some bravery up there in East Anglia. Say no to this development. Let's look after our future and all of those species that we want to be living around us.
There's lots of different things you can do. Obviously, you can donate to the crowdfunder. That's fantastic. Also, share on social media, get talking to your local communities. And the best thing to do is lobby those people in charge, lobby the government, send a letter to your MP. And remember, local elections are coming up next week. Your vote really counts. So just think with the environment in mind. And think specifically about where your vote is going, and that's one of the best things that we can do for environment next week.
Ultimately, if you vote for someone who thinks that this is a really good idea and you don't, then that's a vulnerable position to be in. You've got to think about there are many issues when it comes to putting an X in a box, of course. But environment has got to be a significant one of those these days. It's not the one at the bottom of the list anymore. It's got to be nudging the top of that list, because basically it's about our future.